Hello and welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. Today our very special guest is Jenna Miles, and Jenna works for Avery Dennison. And I remember Avery Dennison back in the days when I was doing mailings to get customers back in the 90s, when I got out of college and had my first business. And I don't think she's selling labels. Now we're in the digital age, so maybe Avery Dennison has done some kind of shift, and they're not primarily making their money off of labels. They're doing some kind of solar tape. What's up, Jenna? Are you doing solar tape?
Avery Dennison is doing a whole bunch of stuff. We have grown over the last 90 years at this point. Back in 1935, it had started and has grown a lot since labels. Our labels business is still one of our largest, but right now, you're talking to Avery Dennison Performance Tapes. So when we talk about solar, we're talking about tape as a functional way to bond the solar panels together.
So when you're talking about tapes, are you talking like 8-track or cassette?
You're speaking to all the millennials and the Gen Xers out there. Single-sided.
Okay, great. Yeah, I've just been spinning some 45s this morning. So yeah, tell us more about your solar tapes.
So we had launched our solar tape portfolio just a while back, and really to help with the manufacturing of solar panels and the installation of. So when we're talking about using tape in the solar industry, we want to make sure that it is easy to use. So tapes can be automated. So if we're talking inline automation, during the manufacturing process, easy to use, easy to apply. There is no cure time when you're talking about pressure sensitive adhesive. So it's a stick and you're ready to go, rather than working with a glue that has a cure time that you have to wait for. And glues can be messy in general.
So, most of the solar manufacturing is happening in other countries, and we're starting to bring it back to the US, and we've had some of those people that are manufacturing solar in the US on the podcast. But maybe you could help us explain what the tape is used for. So it sounds like, something inside of the solar module, making things stick together, and what the tape is like.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple of different tapes that are used in all aspects. So we have some for used in the frame mounting. So you'll have our acrylic foam bonding tapes in there. You'll want the same thing. So a gap filling tape when mounting the junction box on the back of the backing of the panel. When you're working, obviously, with electrical components, you don't want any kind of arcing between metal. So you need that dielectric protection. So we have single coated tapes that offer that level of dielectric protection. So when laid down, they are stretchy and conformable, but protect from any arcing between metal pieces. And then edge protection along the edges of the solar panels to protect from any cracking or breaking.
So if we dissected a solar module, otherwise known as a solar panel, you take it apart, you've got solar cells that are making the electricity. You have metallic connections between the solar cells, and then you have the solar cells connected in different groups. And sometimes the group will go to a bypass diode and take a little trip, across the solar module. And then you have encapsulants, and I guess maybe the tape would be sort of an adhesive. And so sometimes when you're looking at the solar module, you could see where one group of cells is connected to a bypass diode and a different group of cells. And you don't want the pieces of metal there to touch each other. Is that what you're talking about, or at least one of the purposes of the tape?
It can be. Yeah. Different tapes have different uses and applications. But yeah, between the layerings during any of the laminations, it can be, yes.
So I guess too, just like a wire that carries electricity, the tapes are protecting the piece of metal, and it would have to protect your solar module components from arcing amongst each other. So there might be different tapes that work for different voltages. Like if you had a 1,000-volt rated PV module, a 1,500-volt rated PV module, and people are talking about 2,000-volt rated modules. So maybe it would need to be something like a thicker tape or a tape that's rated for higher temperatures, something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
And,
Cool.
our portfolio is kind of I would say our base portfolio, but a lot of what we do here, and especially in my group is a healthy mixture of R&D and commercial. So we understand the applications, but we also like to take it back and develop new products. So if there are any manufacturers out there who maybe like using what they're using today as far as tape is concerned, but maybe need a little bit more protection or a little bit more adhesion here, then we are able to kind of take that back and do a little bit of R&D discovery on our end, find new films, develop new adhesives here at Avery Dennison, and create a new tape to then throw into the solar market and beyond.
Great, great. And so is Avery Dennison an American company?
We are, but we are global. So our headquarters is in Mentor, Ohio, just about 30 minutes outside of Cleveland, which in the solar industry, I think we get about 160 days average of sun. So maybe not great, but we are global. We are in about 50 countries, I believe, 35,000 employees worldwide. So we are all over the place.
Great, because I know that with manufacturing and there's tariffs and all that kind of stuff, so I'm sure that it helps, and people select your product based on it being made in America.
Absolutely.
Yep.
From a tapes perspective, we have a site here in Cleveland. We also have a manufacturing site just outside of Nashville, but we also have a manufacturing site in Turnhout, Belgium and Kunshan, China. So the tapes that we're producing can be produced in any of those sites.
Great, great. Okay. And I guess I was even trying to think of like, what is tape? Most people think like duct tape, scotch tape, tape recorder, if you're old enough. Like I was saying, like 8-track and cassette. I'm sure there are some people are going, what's he talking about? But there's, it's before we had digital audio, we had magnetic audio on these tapes that you could put a magnetic field on, and that's how we would play our music. And people would like trade dead tapes and stuff like that. And I'm sure that most people know what they are, and some people like to be old style. And then we have film, which is sort of like tape, I guess. And some tape is sticky, but of course some tape is not sticky. And my favorite tape usually is duct tape, but since I'm talking to you, it's solar tape now, because I base everything on solar, and so if it helps save the planet like your tape, that sounds like a pretty darn important tape. And so you have something like an adhesive on the tape. I guess you could have double-sided tape too. I'm not sure if yours is double-sided for solar tape, but you probably could make it that way. And so there's the sticky part, and then there is the part that's like holds stuff together that you put the sticky part on. Do you know what they're made out of?
It could be anything. So we call that part the carrier or the face. So if we're talking about a double coated tape, the carrier could be anything. So if we're talking about a double coated foam, the foam is used for gap filling properties, for sealing, gap filling between two rigid surfaces.
Are you saying like foam as far as like foam could be a tape? Like a foam tape?
We can make foam into a tape. Yep, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Can you make bacon into a tape?
Oh, that would be delicious. Except for maybe the adhesive might be a little gross.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot of vegetarians in the solar industry that we don't want to offend.
There's veggie bacon. We can make.
Yeah, that's it. Veggie bacon tape.
But yeah, we've used polyethylene carriers. We can use tissue carrier that it makes it hand terrible.
And speaking of animal products, can you use duck instead of bacon? Duck to have real duct tape.
Yeah. Oh, that went right over my head. That was great.
Does Avery make duct tape?
We do not. No,
Okay.
That's not us.
Well, that's a good thing for you to start making. But
I would agree. But yeah, we can do just about anything. Anything we can lay pressure sensitive adhesive. So basically dried adhesive in roll form on. We could roll it up, put it out as a tape.
Yeah, so I remember like when I had a business, I guess 94 was when I started that business. And I would go to the store and I would buy these sheets, 8.5 by 11, that had mailing labels on them. And I would do like these big mailings and I would stick them. And so I'm like very familiar with those. Do you still make those? Does Avery Dennison still make?
I believe that was a part of the business that had been moved to a separate or sold off, but the labels portion is huge on the other side.
Yeah.
But I believe that portion has been sold off.
Okay. But those labels, they were a form of tape because they had the carrier, I guess, which was paper. And then I guess you just call it the adhesive?
The adhesive, yep, or PSA, pressure sensitive adhesive, yep.
PSA, okay. And while we talk about a PSA, let's take a personal station announcement break. No. This podcast was brought to you by Air. Take a breath and experience air yourself. Don't forget to breathe. And also that PSA was Pacific Southwest Airlines. That was back in the day too. You know, all this old time stuff. And so the adhesive, what kind of adhesives are you using with solar tape?
Really any. So
Like honey? Honey's kind of sticky.
Hilariously, the first adhesives back in, goodness, the 600s possibly, the first ever adhesives were probably made from honey. So that was a great guess.
That's very sweet.
We are a little bit more advanced here in 2025. So a lot of the solar tapes we're using an acrylic-based adhesive because obviously they have to be able to withstand the elements. It's going to be outside.
So let's talk a little bit more about what that means then, an acrylic-based adhesive. So like, do you know more about what acrylic is? Like I know there's like acrylic paints and things like that. Is it like water-based or like oil-based?
Solvent-based. So it's really just about the polymer formulation, the additives that go into it, the acrylic polymers in the formulations that kind of, when mixed together with the solvents, rather than using, I guess, rubber adhesives is more. So
like what would be some other examples of acrylic? Like nails, fingernail polish, maybe something like that, acrylic nails. So I always get my nails done, see? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But with our acrylic adhesives, and really with any of our adhesives, we can play around with the formulations here on site and make it so that they can kind of withstand anything that's thrown at them, UV, different chemicals, any kind of environmental things that are going to be thrown their way. So that's a lot of that you'll see in the solar portfolio. We know that the solar panels are going to bear the brunt, bear the heat.
Yeah, I guess you don't want it to crack. And so it's got to be maybe a little flexible.
Yes.
And you want it to be able to definitely stand up to like UV and hot and cold cycles and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you are looking for either solar installers that make their own solar modules, like there are none. So you're looking for solar manufacturers to use your product.
I would say solar manufacturers, solar installers, even DIYers. I mean, pretty much anybody who wants to use tape, but I would say this one leans a little bit more toward solar manufacturers. Yes.
Yeah. I remember like about 15 or 20 years ago, I had a guy in my class and solar was $1,000 a module. So it was really expensive. And he went on to eBay. He bought a whole bunch of solar cells. He soldered them together on a piece of shower door glass. And he didn't understand solar first. So he was like, they were shading each other. The cells were shading other cells, but it still worked. And I thought it was very creative. And it would have been so much better if he had some Avery Dennison tape.
Absolutely.
The guy was dying for it. I remember there was a guy in that same class. And of course, what I'm talking about, it's not the legal way to do solar. It's not UL listed and it could burn your house down. But, homemade solar modules with a shower door, I'm not recommending it, but some people like to do science experiments. But there was a guy in the class from Fiji, and he was going to take that technology and make his own solar modules because in Fiji, there's not a whole lot of money and there's a whole lot of time. and they need some electricity, and all he needed to do was to bring back a stack of solar cells and, solder them together. And I haven't heard of them burning down Fiji because of that. So it's probably okay. And I'm not sure, if fires are a big thing over there. It probably rains a lot. So
I would say it probably rains a lot. That sounds very innovative. And I mean, that's what you're seeing in both industries. Solar is constantly innovating and changing. You're seeing things getting thinner and more compact, and we're right along there with it. Both of our values are kind of very much aligned. We want to be more efficient, more sustainable, and just, bring an altogether better product for the people.
Great. So do you have any favorite solar companies that might be using your product, or is that a secret?
Oh, I don't know if I could say. And I feel like at this point I could plug, but I don't know if I could. I know my cousin works for a solar company here in Ohio, but I don't know if I could plug it.
Yeah, because there's probably just attorneys or something that
I'm sure there is.
You'd have to ask or something.
I don't want to have to deal with them today.
Yeah.
It's too early for that.
But it would be some companies that are making solar in America probably that are most talked about, trying to get that, made in America, all the benefits of made in America.
Correct.
Not just tax credits and things like that, but making American jobs, putting American people to work.
Exactly.
Lots of good stuff. In fact, do you have any red, white, and blue solar tape?
Actually, one of our tapes is blue.
Okay.
Our edge protector tape is blue. Yes.
Well, you got to just add a little bit of red there, and there's already white back sheets on the solar cells.
Perfect.
And crystalline silicon solar catches more of the red part of the spectrum. So there's your red.
Then perfect. It was meant to be.
Yeah, red light, white backsheet, and blue Avery Dennison solar tape. We interrupt you for a very important announcement. Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast has been brought to you by Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. That's right, Sean White is sponsoring his own podcast, and he wants to remind you to go check out some of his classes. You can go to SolarSEAN, that's solar, SEAN.com, and then click on the links to check out his classes. You can check out his heat spring classes, and you can also hire him to teach classes for you, like at your company, something like that. Now back to the show. I've got a question for you too. One time I had this weird dream that I was hanging out with the Rolling Stones and they were putting down bacon, speaking of bacon, and each piece of bacon played a song. I know dreams are really weird, and I'm a big Rolling Stones fan. And so since they can put songs on tapes, can you put some songs of the Rolling Stones on some of your tape that goes into the solar modules,
That would be a difficult one.
And I think it would sell better that way. That's my recommendation. If you want me to do some consulting, we've got all these bacon analogies, we can make it happen.
I think we can make it happen. I'll take it back to my R&D director.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure they're going to love it. All right.
He's more of a Metallica fan, so it might.
Oh, well, I'm sure Metallica loves the Rolling Stones more than anyone. So, it's no problem there. Yeah.
No problem there.
Yeah. It's funny. One of these houses that I was a little bit involved with, putting solar on the house, I referred somebody to somebody. It was actually the house in Walnut Creek, California, of where somebody from Metallica lived. And Metallica would go practice there, and they left a whiteboard with they were writing their songs while they were practicing them. And so the guy that moved in is a big Metallica fan, and so he left that whiteboard there with their handwriting and stuff on it. So I thought that was pretty
amazing. What a cool story.
Yep. Well, we've made lots of different great analogies, and we ended up talking about, besides bacon too many times, we talked about Metallica. So let's see, is there any other things too that you want to cover?
For me, I think we've hit most of it.
How can we get some of your solar tape? I want some solar tape just because it's solar tape. I don't even care what it does. I just like the name.
You can reach out to, I believe, Avery Dennison Performance Tapes. I believe there is a link that will lead to our inside sales department. you can also reach out to me, honestly, via LinkedIn, and I can.
And we'll put it all in the show notes, all the different.
All in the show notes.
And
I can
everybody's going to be buying some solar tape. Yep.
I can link anybody up.
I just put a sign on the door that said recording in progress. Would the solar tape have stuck to the door just like that other tape?
Oh, absolutely.
So just like people use duct
It would
tape,
tear down the door.
in duct tape, it's not really duct, D-U-C-K, it's D-U-C-T for like putting ducts together, like air conditioning vents and stuff like that. And people use it for everything. And so you could probably take solar tape and also use that for other stuff. Like one time I was at this weird party called Burning Man a long time ago in my past life, and I made shoes out of duct tape and walked across the desert, and they worked great. And I wish I would have been able to do that with solar tape. That would have been really, really cool.
That is the nice thing about all the tapes in the portfolios. They can honestly be used in any market. It depends on how you use them and where you use them. They're all cross-functional depending on where the need is and where the application is.
How good would that tape have stuck to my door?
It would have tore the door down.
Like trying to take it off. Okay, good thing I used this other not such good tape then. Unless I'm going to be recording for the rest of my life. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jenna Miles of Avery Dennison.
Thank you for having me. I loved being here. I had a lot of fun. And now I'm starving. Honestly, I'm going to go get some bacon.
Yeah, okay, that's a good idea. And make sure when you're getting that bacon that you think about how bacon could be made into a tape that plays Rolling Stones and Metallica songs. And thanks for listening to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast, where you can learn about all kinds of interesting things. And if you want to learn how to get NABCEP certified, which is really, really, really good for job security, getting boosted in your career and things like that, go to SolarSEAN.com and you can get all kinds of education. Woo!